Hey guys, we're back for another news video. So first up, Geneva Motor Show was a couple of weeks ago, and there's some amazing cars got announced there, Walter. One of the cars that came out of it was the new McLaren 720S. So this is a replacement for the 650S in terms of the specs of this car. Obviously 720 brake horsepower. I kind of like that with McLaren, they put the horsepower right there in the title of the car. Makes it easy to remember. 720 horsepower. This car has a carbon fiber monocoque. They've completely redesigned it from the previous car. The car weighs 2,800 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, this is a light car. 568 pound-feet of torque. So, you know, pretty impressive. 0 to 60 in under 2.9 seconds. So, I mean, this is one of the quickest cars that money can buy right now. Top speed of 212 miles per hour. And I'm reading these specs and I'm thinking, wait, this isn't even the best car they make. The P1 is way up there. So it's kind of incredible that this is their mid-range car, just with these kind of stats.
What's the cost?
So they haven't announced a cost yet. I don't think we also know yet when it's going to be available. It's probably coming out later this year or next year. I have no doubt this car is going to do very well. It also has this kind of interesting fold-down instrument display where the whole instrument cluster folds down and gives you this very narrow view of just a speedometer only. They say it's for when you're racing the car, you're taking it on a track, you don't want any distractions. It's a little weird to me. In terms of the rest of the interior though, I really do like how they lay out everything. The buttons are right there where you need them. It's simple, but it looks comfortable. Let's talk about the exterior styling though. For me, this is... I'm not sure what to say about this. It's divisive. I think these big headlights, they call them the eye sockets. I don't like them, frankly. I think they look weird. They're just way too big. I find the side of the car a little uninspiring, but I do like the back. I think the back is really nice with those curved tail lights and the rear pipes. What do you think of the look of the car?
I think a lot of Ferraris, even Lamborghinis, tend to kind of really grab your attention. McLaren, again, it's a nice looking car, but it doesn't grab me like other cars do.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the design is very unique. I mean, it definitely stands out, but I would agree with you. I don't know that it's a particularly beautiful car. But definitely a very impressive one. I think the stats are pretty incredible, and as I said, I'm sure this car will do really well, so I can't wait to see one on the street.
So Miles, I went to the Barrett-Jackson Auto Auction again this year. This is the second year in a row I went, and I just really enjoy going to it. It's like going to Disneyland for adults.
For adults, you say?
Yeah, for adults.
Well, how come you were there then?
Alright, well I see where this is going. So Miles, are you a Bieber fan?
Well, you might as well ask me if the world is flat, to be honest.
Yeah, well, at one time people did think the world was flat. But Justin Bieber was trying to sell his 2011 Ferrari 458 Italia, and he actually ended up selling it. And Miles, do you have any idea what it sold for?
$1 million?
No, $424,000.
Wow. And do you think that someone overpaid for that car, or do you think that's what it's really worth?
Well, we'll see what that car sells for in 20 years.
Yeah. Are you familiar with a French car company called Alpine?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't. It's a really interesting company. They were founded in 1955 in Toulouse, France, and they primarily built sports cars. In fact, they have a really rich rally heritage. They won the first, second and third place in the Monte Carlo rally twice in 1971 and 1974, and they actually won the World Championship in 1973, beating companies like Porsche, Lancia and Ford. So they have a really rich heritage. Their most famous car was a car called the A110, which I think is a beautiful car. I love this car. I think it just has really lovely lines. I love all these lights on the front of the car. What do you think of it?
Yeah, it almost kind of reminds me a little bit of a Ferrari Dino from the front.
Yeah.
But the rear, you know, is completely different looking.
Yeah, I would agree. So this car was hugely popular, but the company was very small. In the 70s, with the gas crisis, they really suffered, and they were finally bought out by Renault, which is one of the big French car companies. And they continued to build more modern cars through the 80s and 90s, but finally stopped in the mid-90s and got fully absorbed into Renault's sports car division. Well, the good news is they're back. At the Geneva Motor Show last week, they announced their new A110, and I think this is a very interesting car. It definitely is not as good looking as the original, but I think it's interesting all by itself. One of the interesting comparisons that I noticed is the side profile, I think, looks a lot like an Audi R8. Do you see that, or is that just me?
Yeah, I could kind of see that too.
Yeah, there's definitely something in the lines, and I mean that's a good comparison. Obviously the R8 is a good looking car. This car though is going to be very interesting. It's going to be all aluminum chassis and aluminum body panels. It's going to have a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, putting out about 300 horsepower, so quite a lot of power there. Double clutch, auto gearbox, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. So that's putting it in Audi TT RS, Porsche Cayman territory. So, you know, they're obviously going up against the Germans. And it's also going to weigh about 2,400 pounds. So it's, it's a light car. Yeah, it's a very light car.
That's very good.
Yeah, so really interested to see what comes of this. The bad news, unfortunately, is it won't be coming to the US, which is a shame. The head of Alpine was interviewed and he just said Alpine and Renault do not have a brand recognition in the US, so it would be very hard for them to launch here. So, you know, we keep our fingers crossed that that might change in the future, but for now, really interested to see this car.
You know, I'm surprised that the 0 to 60 performance isn't a little bit better than 4.5 seconds with 300 horsepower and only 2,400 pounds.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they do maybe a stripped down version of this car or more performance that will increase that time, but yeah.
Lead singer and 4-time Grammy winner Steve Tyler of Aerosmith was selling his 2012 Hennessey Viper GT Spider. It's only number 5 of 12 built, and the car does 270 miles an hour.
Wow.
And it also has 1,244 horsepower and weighs only 2,800 pounds.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. The car goes 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds, 0 to 200 in 14.5 seconds.
Wow.
The car sold for about $800,000, and all of the proceeds went to one of his charities that he set up called Janie's Fund, which helps battered and abused young girls and young women.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I hear he's a really nice guy, and I think this is just another example of that.
One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Walter, is the new season of Top Gear. It's back.
Yes.
Which is always good news. This is the 24th season, if you can believe that. That doesn't even include the first 25 years that they used to make Top Gear before the current incarnation. I think, like you, I've been a huge fan of the show for a long time. I remember watching it in the 80s in England, back when it was a totally different show. I think when they rebooted it last year, it struggled. I think there was still some good things, but there were too many hosts, and it just felt very repetitive. It felt like they were retreading a lot of familiar territory. The Grand Tour came along, which I personally was just not a fan of. I was very disappointed by it, and it pains me to say that as a long-time fan of Clarkson and the boys, but I was just not a fan of it. Too much money spent, not enough funny humor. And just not good. So really interested to see what they would do with bringing Top Gear back again, the new Top Gear. And first impressions, I thought it was really good. I think it's got a lot of promise. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree. I thought the chemistry between Matt LeBlanc and Chris Evans last year didn't really work that well. Whereas the trio this year, I think the chemistry is starting to work. And once they kind of get settled into a rhythm, I think it's going to be a really great show.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
So also in the news, I wanted to look at production numbers for some make and models of 2016 because I always like looking back to see how many were made. And I came across one figure that I thought was kind of surprising, and that is the Porsche Cayman. Do you know how many were made for 2016 miles?
I guess maybe 10,000?
That's a good guess, but actually 3,590 were only made.
That's surprising.
So how about another Porsche? How about the 918?
918.
Yeah, how did you know that?
Because it's called the 918.
All right, well how many 911s were made?
911.
Only 8,900 were produced.
Wow.
All right, so that's all we have this week for In the News.
Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video.
Take care.
See you next time.
So Miles, one of the things that
Do you want me just to do it for you? And I just also asked me to tell the story.